Let's see how this goes. Okay. I have a viewer. All right. Let's see how this goes. Hello, everyone. I'm Alan, also known as McLaren 2009, and today I'm playing Derail Valley. Now, I haven't streamed for a very, very long time, so this will be a new one for me. But many, many years ago, I changed around my stream settings so that I could try out playing this specific game in VR. But for one reason or another, I never got around to doing it. So today I'm going to change that. I don't know if I'll make this a regular thing, but I figured since I've been making videos and stuff like that lately, I might give a shot at streaming, at least for a little while. This has been another game that I've been playing a lot more lately, because this one, I pretty much exclusively play it in VR, and the reason for that is I like the fact that you can actually, kind of touch the controls. You can interact with the cars, the locomotives. You can do all kinds of cool stuff in this game. And it was originally one of my favorite VR games. And it was the first or second game that I got as soon as I got my Oculus Rift. And another reason to play this one a little bit more is just simply due to the fact that later this year, supposedly around the second quarter, they're expecting to release what they're calling the simulation update. And that's going to revamp everything. Alright, this sounds pretty cool. That's 630 tons. Anything else running out that way? Alright. Logistics, steel mill, food factory, steel mill. Well, I mean, it's not a very good run, but it works. But yeah, the simulation update's going to add so many more things that I'm really excited about. And I've been playing a lot of these games lately just due to the simple fact that I'm trying to work for the railroad in real life. So I wanted to kind of get an idea, even if it is just a simulated game world. I'm trying to get an idea of what that's like. Oh, this is pretty handy. E3, E4, C3, C2. Okay. Let's see. Since I have every single license in this game, I can't imagine I'm getting any time bonuses. Alright, so that's 278 tons. This one will be the back. So we're going to hook up this one first. All right. So what I'm going to do with this is, since I already have all of the licenses, I don't really have any like real goals or anything like that, so I'm just running trains and hoping for the best. But since I started playing other simulators as well, I've pretty much started exclusively using multiple units. I know the headlight doesn't do anything, but what can you do? So we're going to set up 2 DE6s. And since I seem to have like this really bizarre problem where they'll become decoupled at some random points on the track, so I'm gonna have them coupled at the short hood this time. Alright, turn off the brakes. Always release the independent. And let's set up this. And set up this. I guess I gotta get used to... Why was that on? I gotta get used to... Or I gotta accept the fact that I'm not always gonna have access to this thing. Well, I'll have access to it, if that makes sense, but with the future, the simulation update, you'll lose the ability to use the remote with the D6. So, I have to use it while I can. Because the remote really does make a world of difference with this. Makes everything so much easier. Alright, let's kill the throttle. Alright, let's get up around this corner. And just because it makes my life so much easier, I'm going to couple these 2 locomotives, and I'm also going to hook up that caboose so that I can really get some use out of my remote. We're taking hazmat and electronics out to City Southwest. Alright, now which locomotive do I want to use? What's this one? 32? Yeah, let's go with that. Alright. Now let's get this locomotive configured. Cab lights. That was a stupid idea. But luckily the roundhouse is flat. Alright, give it a second. Build up air pressure. Like, literally just a second. It's one single locomotive. Alright, so that's probably fast enough. Farther. Actually, let's see if we're far enough. Yep, we're on it. Alright, now let's go over to this side. This would be outrageously heavy in real life. Because mostly the locomotive was not, like, spotted properly. So it's not in the center of the turntable, so the weight wouldn't be balanced, and it would just be really, really hard to move. Since it was just off by a couple of, or since it was off by feet instead of inches, I would not have been able to move that by hand. Alright. Now let's go out and get this set up. Air. MU cable. All right. Realistically, this specific job probably doesn't require 2 locomotives, but it's more fun to do it this way anyway. The only part that kind of sucks is when you break these down, or it's like when you get done with all of whatever you're doing, you've got to take them apart and service them individually. Which is another thing that I'm really looking forward to about the simulator update. You can just plug in one of them and you just turn a dial and you can service all of them. It'll make life so much easier. Let's back up to the caboose. Realistically, the caboose is supposed to be at the back of the entire train, but I'm not doing that. Basically, I started using the caboose, but I would always have it hooked up behind my locomotive so that I would always carry it with me. Then one day I started or I went to try backing it into the roundhouse, and then I realized that, oh wait, the caboose doesn't fit on the turntable. Or the caboose fits on the turntable, but there's not a locomotive to push it off. So I ended up having to reposition the caboose, pick it up with a DE2. It's like pick it up with the DE2, move it off of the turntable, move it away from the roundhouse, and then I just kind of like left it on the side. And then that's just where it sat until one day I decided that, you know what, I've got some money to spare. I'm going to summon the caboose, or I'm going to spawn it up at the military base, slap it onto the back of the train, and pull it all the way back to here. And then I realized that, well, since I gotta back up into the military base over there, I'll just dump the caboose right here in front of the roundhouse. Then I can back both of my locomotives in to get repaired or to get service done. And then whenever I get done and whenever I go for my next job, I can just build my group of locomotives. Like I just build my set of locomotives, pull forward out of the roundhouse, back up onto the caboose, and I can just have the caboose attached to whatever locomotives I'm pulling at the time. Okay, and we are aligned for the E-track like we're supposed to be. Alright, and these are labeled from left to right. Why didn't I do that? Alright. E3, E4. Okay, currently this is aligned to the main. Okay. Let's kill the throttle a little bit. Alright, so I need 4 and 3. So since 4 is significantly heavier, that's going to be closest to my locomotives. And this is going to be at the very back, so we're going to couple this one last. And we've got clothing and electronics. And the funny thing is, in real life, those are pretty light, too. Actually, that's not really true. Some of the heaviest loads I've carried as a truck driver have actually been clothing. It's watching somebody play American Truck Sim a while back before I actually became a truck driver. And the guy in the video was like, how do you get 40,000 pounds of clothes? And after having actually done the job for a year, I can confidently say you would be surprised. I think all of the clothing orders I've had were 40,000 pounds. And that's just the weight of the clothes. That's not even including the trailer. And then, oddly enough, one of the lightest things I've had to carry was home appliances. And I legitimately had to laugh when I went to the cat scale with the appliance load, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm loaded with like stoves, dishwashers, and things like that. Like, this is gonna weigh a ton. It's like, this is gonna be insanely heavy, and then I look at the ticket and it's just like, you can barely even tell I was loaded. And then you look at what's on it, and it's like, yeah, I got 40 pallets in there. I'm fully loaded. It's just light. It was like the weirdest thing, because I was expecting it to be so much heavier. And then the things that you think are going to be light, like clothing, you find out, no, clothing isn't light. What is going on here? This is one of those things that I don't understand what's going on with the game. I'm hoping that with the update, since it's going to be such a big, like, all-encompassing update, I'm hoping that they find, or I'm hoping that they're aware of these random parts on the track where it just stops the train. Like, you need to greatly throttle up just to try and overcome it. Like, there's something blocking you, something invisible on the track, and you have to, like, force your way over it. And if you're going too fast, it'll just randomly cause a derailment. And if you're not going fast enough, it'll just stop you. Like there's an invisible bumper or something that you just can't see. But there's one right there. There's one in between the the passenger track, or the branch for the passenger track, and the D and G track section. There's another one on the outbound side of the Y, pulling out of the harbor. And there's one that I've got this sinking suspicion that I'm probably gonna hit in between the branch for the South Forest and the and City Southwest. Alright, let's apply the independent. And basically, I'm expecting, because it's happened the last 2 times I've gone out that way, I'm expecting that it's going to derail, or not derail, it's gonna split my locomotives. It doesn't seem to do it as much when they're both facing the same direction, so connected here at the short hood end. But when they're back to back, both times it's split them apart in this one specific section of track. And so far, that's the only place I've seen it happen. Diesel. It's probably diesel and gas. Oh no, just diesel. Had a job pretty much exactly like this one a few sessions back, where it was a mixed load of diesel and gasoline. Now, I have a endorsement on my commercial license to handle hazmat, but I've never carried anything like diesel. The only things I've ever hauled were bleach and like a single pallet of like helium. The company that I worked for at the time, we didn't really get too many hazmat loads. But I was one of the people that was qualified to carry them. Yeah, see what I mean? Like, it was already moving, so like the brake pipe along the length of the train is already charged, yet it hit that spot right there, and it cut its speed in half. And I don't know what's going on there, or why. Alright. Let's take a look real quick. That. Okay. I don't think I'll be streaming enough to need that. Keep hoping I'm going to start working again here soon. Money from getting out of the Marine Corps doesn't cover everything. Alright. Let's go a little farther. And then kind of like a small thing that I'm looking forward to about the simulator update. Just saw it in one of the short videos not too long ago, where they were talking about the difficulty presets. And one of the things about the realistic setting is that they're going to have more forgiving time bonuses because you have to do everything by hand and you have to be extremely careful. So they don't want you to rush. Like, with the having all of the licenses currently in the game, I have like minus 37% on the time bonus. So basically, I've just accepted that even if I do everything absolutely right, more than likely I'm never going to get a time bonus. And I'm kind of hoping that since more than likely I'll probably use the realistic setting because I pretty much exclusively play in VR, so all of like the UI things, the third person camera, those I imagine are going to get extremely nauseating in VR. So I'm probably not going to use those things. So yeah, it would kind of suck to lose the auto coupling thing like on the remote here, but it's not the end of the world. You can just easily walk up between these, put the chain onto the hook, release the handbrake on one of the ends, and go on from there. Yeah, it adds a little bit of time to it, and you can't rush it, or you can't just take that little shortcut. Or maybe I could play on like whatever the standard difficulty setting is and maybe still have that, but just not the UI. I'm not sure. I'll have to see how it pans out when they actually release it. But all of the update videos that they've been posting, I, for one, am really interested in it. Alright. Let's keep that around 5 kilometers. Realistically, it's supposed to be less than 5 miles an hour. But since this is in kilometers, the best conversion I can give you is 5 kilometers an hour is approximately 3.2 miles an hour. So realistically, I could probably safely couple at 7 or 8 kilometers an hour, and all would be right in the world. See, that's 100%, 100%. You look back here, 100%, 100%. But what you don't realize is just how strong these intermodal containers are. Like, it's crazy. I think these are all 53 feet. So these should all be like the standard like rail container. But like a normal truck, like a tractor trailer with like a dry van, just like a standard plain and simple dry van, the empty weight is approximately 30,000 pounds between the tractor and the trailer, and the legal weight limit here in the US in most places is 80,000 pounds. So that gives you approximately 50,000 pounds worth of cargo that you can carry. Well, one of those intermodal containers, generally like the better made ones, they, instead of 50,000 pounds, they have a max weight of like 77,000 pounds. So then you're like, well, that's kind of insane, right? It means if you have a container loaded to capacity, you're over the weight limit. It's also why you need a bigger and stronger truck to do it. So those containers are reinforced to hold extra weight. Now, these specific containers here, they're a little bit smaller, or they're a little bit lighter. And considering it is 6 cars and 280 tons. Let's just drop that down there. Whereas this one is 14 cars, 630 tons. And it's worth $1.4 million. They don't want much. So basically, this current load doesn't warrant having 2 locomotives, and it's a bit more of a pain to service 2 locomotives, but it has significantly improved pulling capacity, so you don't have to hit the throttle as hard. And that's really important for this area up here. Because all the way up to here, you're going uphill. Now, it's not that bad. It's like, I want to say 2.3% at like the steepest. And then from right about here down, it's all downhill. But it starts getting a little bit sharp around here, and then this bridge right here coming out of the south end of the steel mill, that is 3.3% down. Right now we're at 1.2% up. So what I want to do is hit the throttle hard enough that I can look at the speedometer and see the needle going up. It means we have enough power to make the climb. And then once I reach what I perceive to be my safe speed, which given the amount of 40-kilometer zones on this part of the trip, I generally try to stay around 35. So once I get to 35, I'll slow down. And as you can see there, the speed was dropping, so I needed to go 1 notch higher. Maybe 2. So yeah, this is a pretty short train. It's not insanely heavy. first problem that I'm going to encounter is the track is currently aligned to go up towards the steel mill. So I need to make this turn over here and head out west towards City Southwest. Oh, and I was wrong earlier. The area that has the problem is right here, in between this Y and the branch going to the sawmill, not Forest South. I don't remember the map as well as I could, despite having over 100 hours in this game. Pretty much exclusively in VR, on top of that. And we're making progress. Really looking forward to that update. Well, if you're joining, welcome to the stream. I'll try to check intermittently to see if anything's going on in chat or anything like that. But since I'm doing this in VR, I can't make any promises about how consistent or reliable I'm going to be with that. Alright, so let's ease off the throttle just a little bit, because even though we're in like 40, 50 kilometer an hour zones, I would prefer to keep it around 35 going through these turns. And even though other people can show you in like their YouTube videos and things that the speed limits aren't that strict, like they have some wiggle room, but I don't want to risk it. And since I'm trying, and it's a very painful process, but I'm trying to work for the railroad in real life, so I'm kind of trying to get a feel for the whole do it safe, do it right the first time, stuff like that. Alright, still making this climb. I do really wish I knew, like, the signaling rules, like when should you hit the horn, like how should you use your lights, how should you set those up. I mean, I guess I could, like, Google it and just look up what are the DOT and FRA requirements for signaling, but I just never got around to it. And between playing this for like an additional 20-30 hours, putting between 40 hours in Train Sim World 3 and 20 hours into 2, I've been doing a lot of things, or playing a lot of games with trains. It's gotten to the point that I'm starting to see trains when I sleep. That's probably a sign that you have a problem. But, to be perfectly honest, they're really cool to learn about. And while I've never worked around locomotives, I've worked around freight cars. I've physically built thousands of them, and all I was just a welder on an assembly line in a factory making cars. Bulk of what I worked on were coal and grain gondolas. Stuff like that. Also worked on some general purpose hopper cars that you can kind of just shove whatever will fit into them. And occasionally log cars. Didn't get to work on any covered hoppers or tankers. The facility I worked in wasn't set up for those things. But I got to repurpose a lot of coal cars. And when it's like I started playing this game right when I got my Oculus Rift, what I'm playing on right now. And it was like the coolest thing ever because as far as I can tell, I am sitting in a locomotive and actually working with the controls, and that is like the coolest thing ever to me. Alright. Okay. Alright, my speed's starting to go up again. As I said earlier, I'm trying to keep it around 35 through these winding turns up here in the mountains. And then pretty much right around this corner, when you start getting around to the valley, it's gonna switch to going downhill. In fact, that seems to be starting now. So let's set the brake a little bit. Yeah, you get around this corner and you start going down. Now, granted, once you get into the big downhill area, it goes all the way up to like 120 kilometers an hour for like a couple of seconds. But I'm gonna be honest with you, we're not going 120. We're gonna go like 70, maybe. I am like the walking embodiment of slow is smooth, smooth is fast. If we rush, we make mistakes. So, take it slow, be careful, and do it right. Even though the game's called Derail Valley, I take some comfort in the fact that I have yet to intentionally derail. Pretty much the biggest accident I've caused in this game, I was at the goods factory in town. I was backing into the repair shed. I didn't realize at the time that you can't get diesel fuel there, but you can do repairs, and I was using my little remote, and and I wasn't paying attention, and I slammed one of these DE6s into the bumper on the back wall of the repair shed. Not a fun time. Shattered the windows. It was great. But yeah, I don't have like the inclination to just cause chaos. Of course, that's probably because like everything in your like quote-unquote campaign save has a cost associated with it. And once you get every license in the game, the amount of money that you can pay as like your copay for your chaos and destruction gets higher. So it's best to break things when you're starting out and not when you get up to, I guess, what you would call the late game. Okay. Nobody's saying anything in chat, so we're good. Alright, I need to speed up a little bit. It's kind of weird because since I got into playing Train Sim World, I've realized that these are backwards. Like, the dynamic brake's supposed to be here, and the throttle's supposed to be here. And then the lever itself is backwards, because you're supposed to pull back, not push forward. And it's all, like, little stuff that I didn't think anything of it when I started out. But when I started getting a few different experiences, I realized that, oh, these little things are off. Like, I've been keeping up with the posts on Discord about the simulator update, and somebody shared like a picture of the DE2 from back before the Overhauled update came out, and they showed a picture of the coupling box. It had like this little rotary dial. It was like a bigger version of what's on the remote control, and you could couple and decouple cars with the red and green button in the cab, and I had completely forgotten that that was even in the game. Like, I played it long before the Overhauled update came out, and I've used that coupling system before. But I had completely forgotten about it since Overhauled came out. But then another thing that caught my attention with that throwback photo that somebody shared was when in the picture it didn't have an independent brake lever, and I had completely forgotten about that, and I was just like, was there a point when the independent wasn't in the game? Like, I legitimately don't remember that. Well, it turns out, yes. Back in the day, the only thing we had was the train brake. So, whenever you went to stop, you had to use the main air brake for the entire consist. And then you had to wait for it to build back up before you could move again. So I kind of blame this game for giving me some bad habits for when I started playing Train Sim World. Because it turns out, yeah, that's not how you use the that's not how you use the independent brake. That's not how you use the train brake. And then I had to teach myself how to use the dynamic brake because they didn't have the tutorial for it until you get to Train Sim World 3. And I jumped on the bandwagon a little bit late, and I started playing specifically with 2. And they don't have tutorials for that in 2. And I'm probably gonna mess this up. Okay. Going left like we're supposed to. And let's brake a little bit more. It would be funny if after all that talk about not derailing, and then I come around this corner hot and derail right here. This is another thing that's gonna change with the simulator update. Like, you're not supposed to be able to just back out the train brake. Like, the only way to increase the air back in the system is to fully release it and let it build pressure back up. You can't just say, okay, I'm going from full application to down to initial reduction. It won't work. You'll still be at 100% full application until you fully release it and it builds up pressure again to equalize the brake pipe to its operating pressure. So yeah, I always thought this was like the coolest video game ever until I started finding out there are a couple of things that aren't quite like the real locomotives. And that's perfectly fine. I don't expect to come out of like something where in the title it says we expect you to destroy things. Not expecting to come out of that and go hop in a real locomotive. Whereas, like, some of my other simulator games, you play those and you kind of have, like, the impression of, okay, now I kind of know something about how that thing works. So maybe I could do that. Whereas here, you kind of just play this for fun. I mean, I guess realistically, you play the other ones for fun too. And maybe I just have a different definition of what I consider to be fun. I like stuff like this. It's a pretty relaxing game, in my opinion. It's not overly difficult, not really stressful, it's not crazy, anything like that. Now, really, what I could have done was I could have stopped at the farm, and I could stop up here at Oil Well Central, and I could look for any cars going to City Southwest. But that's probably not what I'm gonna do, if I'm being honest. And then I'll pick up a job from City Southwest and see where I can take that. Let's hit the horn a couple of times, because why not? And let's blow through the yard at 40. Now, luckily, I've started getting in a habit of whenever I leave a facility, I want to, like specifically these ones where you go through them, I'm trying to make sure that as I pull through, I want to make sure that the main line is the one that's currently selected, so you don't have any unpleasant surprises. If you come flying through at like 80, and then you're like, oh, we're going into a line of tanker cars. Don't want any of those fun surprises. How are we doing on fuel? Almost burned through a third a tank of diesel. Now that's a few thousand gallons. Or, well, in this game it would be more like a few thousand liters. Which really makes it interesting when you look at the prices when you go into the service shop, and then you realize that there are at least a couple of liters in a gallon. I don't know the conversion off the top of my head, but there's at least two. And you look at the diesel counter, the diesel pump, and it's something like 320 a liter, and then you're like, wow, that's at least $6 a gallon. And then you realize, all right, fair enough. It's kind of like that in real life. I really should actually convert it and see what I come out with. To see if I should feel sad when I play this game. Alright, we're coming up on an area that it's a lower speed. We're going down the 30 kilometer an hour zone, so I want to hit the brake a little bit so that I'm under 30, but I gotta keep a real close eye on my locomotives here, because this curve right here is the one that has broken my train. Like, somehow the locomotives become detached, the MU cable breaks. It's a bad time just coming around this turn. So I gotta listen out for that token ping saying, there it is. Alright, emergency stop. Alright, independent. Recharge. Okay, turn that off. And turn that off. Okay. Now for the part that's going to be really weird. You know, when I was saying that, this isn't what I had in mind. I was referring to the fact that when I pull out my remote to try to get this fixed, I am going to have to really throttle up to get that lead locomotive forced into the trailing locomotive. Okay, couple. Alright, that's connected. That's connected. And just make sure that this is also connected. Okay. So, going forward again, set the independent. Throttle up. And let's get in the cab. And as you can see from doing an emergency stop, knocked over the radio. So never a dull moment. Okay, we have air pressure. We're on flat ground. Yeah, I have no idea what it is about this spot, but you just... Maybe it's me, but you guys saw I was going under the speed limit. I was even slowing down to like half the speed limit, and my locomotives became detached, and so did the caboose, which I understand even less. I have no idea what broke or why, but here we are. Let's get up a little bit faster. Currently, the plan is to get to City Southwest, and we're going to bypass it. We're going to go up we're going to go past the Y, we're going to go up here onto the main track, and then back into the inbound yard, which should be on the west side of the yard. This branch goes down towards the sawmill, which I don't actually think I've ever been there. And we are going way too fast. Well, we're not, but apparently we are. The last turn. And let's grab my comms radio. supposed to. Alright. Let's kill that. Let's grab this. Grab the remote. Turn that on. Currently going 30, and we shouldn't be. And let's teleport out here. Okay. But yeah, no idea. The locomotives are fine, the caboose is fine, the cars are fine. They just got detached. Weirdest thing. This is another thing that I gotta enjoy it while it lasts. Because the realistic difficulty, well, actually every difficulty, you'll no longer be able to just walk through walls. You actually have to open doors like you're supposed to. So you can't just walk through walls. And you'll only be able to teleport through either a door or a window. Unless, of course, you trash the locomotive and you can't get to the doors anymore. But I would imagine that's going to be like a special case. Where, okay, the car derailed, you can go through the wall now. It's like you derailed, you can go through the wall. But just as it is normally, no phasing through walls. And then they don't want those locomotives being considered too kind of like overpowered. Like you should just use them for long runs between destinations, and you shouldn't be using them for local in-yard switching cars. So they're removing the ability to use this remote with the DE6. And I can kind of understand it, honestly. It makes sense. But it kind of sucks at the same time because of things like this. Like, without being able to use the remote for my frontmost locomotive, I would have to already be up there, and I would have to pull forward far enough that I think I've cleared that switch, and then back up into the yard by going to the locomotive and doing it that, and actually getting it backing it up that way. Whereas my preferred thing to do is to just use the remote. And I guess realistically, what I would have to do would be go well past the entrance to the yard, grab a DE2 or either of the new locomotives that are specifically meant to switch cars, and go hook up to the back of the train and pull them into this yard. instead of doing it with those. Because if I do it with those locomotives, while it can be done, it's not the best way to do it. So they're trying to make it so that you don't use the heavy locomotive for everything. And honestly, I can understand that. Okay. It just kind of sucks because this is how I've been playing the game. But at the same time, it is a waste of equipment, and those two locomotives are rather expensive to run. So it would be much more economical if I go and set up that DE2 and just break this apart into two cuts of cars like I'm supposed to. Instead, I'm doing the switching cars with the road engine, or with the road locomotives, and it's just not how you're supposed to do it. I mean, the good news is both this yard and the yard that I need to put the tankers in, or both rails, or both tracks, are clear. So all I gotta do is just shove these in there and call it a day. Then I can back up to the service track, and the great thing about this yard specifically, this is where you do maintenance. I don't have to disconnect my two locomotives in order to refuel them. It is completely possible to just take the rear one, back it up to the service track, and then shut it off, then back up the lead one, and there's enough space for my trailing locomotive to fit right there in front of that DE2. And I got a feeling I hit another bump in the track somewhere, and my speed just died. Granted, I wasn't going all that fast to begin with, but it's still annoying. So yeah, this is like the one place that I'm aware of that I do not have to break apart my locomotives. Alright, I need all of the intermodal cars past this post. I say all of the intermodal cars, and then the very back is a boxcar. Alright, that's 11,000 kilograms. This is 20,000 and 30,000. 35,000. Yeah, so flat car is lighter, but the container is heavier. So just like my experience with dry vans versus intermodal chassis, these are heavy. That is not. Which is kind of funny because when these are emptied, that is much heavier. But that's also by design, because these containers are so heavy, if you want to be able to move them easily, something like this flat car would probably be your best bet. Now, maybe if I'm lucky, I can get a run going up to the machine factory, because there's generally some pretty cool stuff up there. Alright. Let's hit the brakes. Okay. There. It's kind of cool because the position that I worked in the factory, on the cars that I worked on, there would be a bracket that holds the angle cock in place. And what my position, or at least the first position that I worked at, would do is you would hold the bracket like right here, you would tack it on like the top and bottom in like 4 places, and then it would get sent down the line like the pipe's not even there. In the position that I worked in, all we got were just the center sills. So like this spine kind of thing running down the middle, and you see those brackets that hold the rods for the brake system. I put those on. And then you would take like this, there would be a hole where the pipe is going to get fed through. And you would put it on there, you'd tack it on the top and bottom, and then it would go down the line. And you would do this on both ends of the hulk, the center sill. And then when it got down to another position that I started filling in for when I had more experience with the company, and I kind of became like this universal fill-in, I would go down to this other position where we have like this belt-operated like rotator system, and it would flip the car around. It would, or I should say, it would roll it on its central axis, so that you could fully weld that bracket on all 4 sides, always in the horizontal position, because the size of the welding wire that we were using for it was really high current, so it was really fluid, and it would quite literally fall out if you're not careful. So, for the procedure that we were running, that was where you actually welded it. Then, when you would get down to another building, there would be this little brass fitting that holds the now positioned pipe in place. And you have to hit it with a rubber mallet. Actually, no, not a rubber mallet. You had to use it with a really heavy metal hammer. And you had to crack that thing until it goes all the way on, and then use the same hammer to bend over the ends of the clip, so that it never slides off. Inversely, if anything ever goes wrong with it, well, you'd have to replace the whole pipe or whatever. And then you have bigger problems, so having to grind and cut off that bracket is probably the least of your worries. Replacing, say, the entire brake pipe, less of a fun task. Alright, C3I. And luckily, that is quite literally the next row over. And I am not getting anywhere fast. So, I gotta get past this switch right here with that car so I can get this backed into that line. And then the good news is that all we gotta do is just pull the locomotives. That's gonna make it interesting. Alright, so slight complication. Since I brought the caboose with me, I'm going to have to back the caboose forward, or I'm going to have to push the caboose forward onto this track, disconnect from it, then pull the locomotives forward back onto the service track, get them both refueled, and we can go on about our day. And we're going slow enough that the Independent can successfully stop all of these cars. Generally not a good idea, but you do what you gotta do. Release the Independent. And now we gotta get all of the tankers past this sign. And let's keep it going nice and slow. I've found that you preferably want to back into here because you go back here and realize, hey, there's nowhere to turn around in here. You've got this, the C1 is kind of like the runaround track. One of these has got to be a loading track, right? Outbound, storage, inbound. No, I guess they don't load on this track. Alright, let's get back up to where my train is currently. Alright. We can dial that back a little bit. We're already late, might as well take our time and enjoy the ride. Something that I would like to see that I don't imagine is ever going to happen, I would like to see those like grab irons be things you can interact with. So you can like reach up and grab onto the car and you can actually like ride the car around. Like that would be really cool to me. And it's like the dumbest thing ever, but back when I worked in the factory, it was like the coolest thing when you were in the last building for the coal cars, where they mounted the walls, hung the doors for the triple hopper, or the release hatches for the triple hoppers. Basically, the entire car is already built, and this is the last assembly part, or last assembly step before it goes into final paint. So it's already mounted on the trucks. Everything's already ready to go. It just has to, once it passes through the final inspection station, it goes to QA for the final inspection, and then it gets paint and decals. So the car is functionally completely ready to go. Everything about it is done. It just has to be inspected and painted. So we have a little hydraulic winch on the floor that pulls the cars into the final inspection station. And what you would have to do is you would have to stand up on the platform here, or on this specific car it would be the platform over here, and you have to drop the chain to release the handbrake. They pull the winch on the floor, yank the car down the track on the assembly line, and then you would be up on, holding on to that rail up there. And once you're past a certain point in the inspection position, you turn that wheel for the handbrake and lock the car in place, and then they put the ladders on it and do the final inspection. And just that little thing of like riding on the car for like a split second or just like a minute or two, it's like, it sounds ridiculous, but it was like the coolest thing ever. I really liked that job. However, having said that, I did not really like that company. It's like the job itself was really cool, but the company was a little bit shady at times and left some things to be desired, but the job itself was awesome. And you always get like weird borderline scared reactions from people when you're like, yeah, I've set myself on fire before. And it's just like, okay, story time. How the hell did you do that? Realistically, I actually could make a streaming career just telling my ridiculous stories over the years. Alright, since the only thing worth mentioning is the caboose. Alright. I swear this game has it out for me. It's like, yeah, I swear this game has it out for me. I've been trying to I try to, when I manually couple the cars and locomotives, I try to use the same chain from the same side on every car as I move back. And then the game decides randomly, no, I don't like that chain. I'm going to switch you to the other one. Now, this time it's not the best of examples because I automatically coupled them with the remote. But in previous videos, previous times of playing the game, I would say want to favor connecting the front vehicle with chain to the back vehicle and then couple the air hoses. And then when I go to decouple the cars, somehow the rear vehicle would be coupled to the front vehicle. And it's just like, that's not how I set you up. Why are you in this position? So then I started thinking, alright, maybe the game just likes the back one better. So if instead of using the front one, I use the back one, like the game is clearly telling me it wants me to do. Well, it turns out that doesn't work either. The game will abruptly switch it from the back one to the front one. And it's just like, okay, is it like, is the chain, is it like Schrodinger's coupling mechanism? As long as it's unobserved, it can be in, it's in a indeterminate superposition where it's both coupled from the front to the back and the back to the front, and only when it's observed does it pick a fixed state. I know that's insanely oversimplified quantum mechanics, but Like, really? Dumb things like that are why I'm so excited about the simulator update. I'm hoping little trivial, meaningless bugs like that will be addressed, but I doubt it. They've got bigger problems to worry about. And since they essentially rebuilt the game from the ground up, and that's why the simulator update has been delayed like it has been, so who knows? Maybe those things will be addressed. Okay. Now let's do this the dumbest way possible. Oh wait, no. Leave that alone. Just kill this engine. And kill that. Yeah, like I said earlier, gotta get used to phasing through the walls while we still can. Because we won't be able to forever. Oh. I didn't... I shouldn't have done this anyway. I didn't turn in the job. So fixated on servicing the locomotives that I forgot that I still had the clock running on this job. And this one was the one that was actually worth money. 67,000 ain't bad. Alright, get rid of that. And that one's going back to the harbor. Yeah, nothing really special. Who knows? Alright, let's release the brake. I should really be by the locomotive so I know when the front one is on the track or in position. But of course I'm not doing any of this the intelligent way. Alright. Independent. Neutral. Kill that. And let's go up here, turn that off. Okay. Although that specific thing, the only inconvenience is the fact that you gotta open the door. But you kind of learn early on that there's no point in opening the door, and I will show you why. As the game sits right now, I open the door is open. The door is closed. So when you find out you can walk through the walls, you're just like, well, the door's not going to be in the position I left it in, so why bother? Well, specifically, one of the things that they called out that they're going to fix is that specific thing. They're going to make it so that the doors and windows maintain the position that you leave them in. And they also make it so that you actually have to use the doors and potentially the window if you're so inclined. Alright, $7,600. Basically, I almost got 10 times that between these two jobs. And this is not the station. station's over here. But you can see where I might get the impression that that looks like a station. Alright, now we already know there are shunting jobs for the cars I just brought in, and there's a freight haul running back to the harbor. Huh? Okay. Check this out. Freight haul. Harbor and town deliver empty containers. I guess it's considering it a freight haul because you're carrying intermodal containers? Who knows? Let's see if we can find this train. It's yellow, blue, red. Yeah, 45. So empty intermodal containers running back to the harbor. Which, that's as good of anything to get me out of here and back to my quote-unquote home base, if you will. Alright. Let's make it happen. And of course, it's going to the G track. Okay, fees and license. Why is... Huh? Did I do something wrong? Alright, I clearly missed a step with maintenance. Oh, you know what? I don't have to walk back over there. I have a caboose. Alright, there is a trash can in here. And fees. Okay, that's better. And the reason the other one was so high is because I forgot to touch up the wheels and body. What can you do? Okay. Let's set up the rear one first. Yeah, you definitely don't need 2 locomotives for this job. And as a matter of fact, let's just do it that way. We're not going to take this one. We're going to decouple this one. And we're just going to keep 76. because this load is completely empty. It's 153 tons. Honestly, I could do it with a shunter. It doesn't even warrant using the DE6, but I'm gonna get it back to the home base and call it a day. Say Heiss video, he pointed out that this is on the wrong side. The engine compartment should be down there. But the developers have said that they're not making a 100% replica of any real locomotive. They had to take some creative liberties. So why not make it a completely random locomotive that just looks right? It's like, why does it have to be any particular locomotive? Why not just a completely made up one? So what we're going to do is going to back up to the caboose, back the caboose up to the intermodal cars, and get back to the harbor. All right. Basically, this specific locomotive has survived a couple of times of switching vehicles. I guess I just like this one. Now we cross that, and okay, where's don't want that coming in hot because I don't want to mess up the caboose. You know, maybe I did. It's like maybe I underestimated it. Maybe I did damage the locomotive when it got decoupled. Not sure what would have damaged it, but maybe it did get damaged. It's really cool bringing the caboose with you, because it gives you that signal boost for the radio or the remote control. You know what? That's going to run away. Let's just automatically couple it. Okay, so rear to front. And this one is interesting because... Which job is this? Logistics Hall 81. Alright, let's run over to the station real quick. Yeah, let's just leave the crane completely unattended. Yeah, this is 81 right here.
You want buttered noodles or mac and cheese?
I like the mac and cheese, I think. Alright, so yeah. This one is that one, but in order to get to that one, you have to dig out, or it's in front of that one. It's the weirdest thing. I leave the locomotive unattended for a second, and it does absolutely nothing. Kill the throttle and just hope for the best. And of course it's going to the G track, so we are not aligned for that at the harbor. But we gotta turn around anyway. So I'm probably gonna go through the C track, flip around, and then back into the G track. At least that's the current plan anyway. Okay. Let's hit the independent real quick. Set it to go forward. Okay, and these are probably going to take a second to build up. The game's pretty good about if the cars have been moved recently and they have air in their tanks. But supposedly with the simulator, it's going to get even better. Like another one of the big things on the list is improved air brake simulation. So there's a lot of stuff in that game, or that update that I'm looking forward to. Even something little like the Doppler effect would be a really cool addition. Let's take a look at that. Nobody. Oh well. speed that up a little bit. You know what? Oh no, I set that up right. I was about to say, wouldn't it be funny if I did that wrong? Alright, now when this passes by, switch this back to the inbound track. There. And then we'll go up here. And when we're past here, I'll switch this back to going north. Going 13. How are you having problems with this? You want to have, like, something bad happen if you're doing something wrong. Wait, no. I'm freaking stupid. No, that's going into the service track. This is the one I want to adjust. Whole time wasn't even paying attention to the right switch. Alright, now I gotta get onto this one. And as soon as that car's past this point, I'm gonna switch this one to bypass. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. I don't know what the grade looks like over there. It's level over here, but I don't think it is over there. Alright. Bypass. Somebody went to town with the pile driver on this one. They rammed it all the way into the dirt. Alright, let's catch a train. Alright. I only have one load. I have one load that is extremely light. And all of the switches are already aligned all the way back to the harbor. Let's keep it really slow through here, because you already know this place hates me. Another good one to use is the steam locomotive, but it's such a royal pain to use it. And I am not good with steam at all, so I'm probably using it horribly inefficiently. It's not that there's anything wrong with using it, it's just more challenging. I've heard from a few people that pretty much exclusively use the steam in this game because it's more challenging. think the part that's challenging for me is just handling the trains, getting from one place to another, building a train in such a way that your cargo is properly balanced, because I found out the game, at least to some extent, has mechanics where you can have what would be called a string line derailment, where a car in the middle will just pop off the tracks. And I found out from a different video about why that happens, and it turns out, just like with trucks, when you have multiple trailers, you have to have the heaviest one closest to the tractor. Well, it turns out it's the same thing with trains. If you have multiple cuts of cars building one joint or one big consist of cars making up a train, you put the heavy loads forward, and then you get lighter and lighter as you go towards the back. Well, this game doesn't teach you that, so you kind of just have to figure it out. Otherwise, you learn the hard way what happens when you put the empty cars at the front and the heavy cars at the back. It turns out you derail. Well, that might be part of the fun of learning how to play the game. You start figuring out what causes you to derail, and you try to avoid doing those things. But I had not previously thought about that potentially being an issue until it happened. And then in a completely unrelated video for a different game, he explained why that happens. And now you know. So yeah, since all 9 of these containers are empty, it doesn't particularly matter, so you just have it set up. But it turns out you want to actually plan out not just where your loads are located in the consist, you also want to plan out which ones are getting unloaded first. Like, I did a slightly bigger job a little while ago where I had 3 locomotives hooked up, and it was 4 different loads running from the harbor and town to the goods factory and then the military base. So I went up here, pulled into there, dropped off those cars, dropped off the 3rd locomotive, went up here. You go up this way, and then you come around and then back into the military base. Really easy, but it was pretty heavy. I had a feeling that when the simulator update came out, I was thinking it was probably going to come with like a hard reset and you go back to square one with everything, because that's what happened with Overhauled. Since they implemented the licenses and things like that, you had to reset your save completely to square one when you started out in Overhauled, and I kind of figured, since so much was being drastically changed with Simulator, that they were probably going to do that again. Well, it turns out they're not doing it that way. You'll still have your legacy save. It'll just be marked as a legacy save, and it would be in your best interest to start over from square one, just because of the number of changes and things that are being implemented. So you don't have to, but it would probably be a good idea, because the licenses are going to change. How a couple of those things work is going to change. So you could maintain your legacy save just to kind of mess around with things. And also so that you have things already unlocked for the sandbox mode. But to get like the full experience with the new licenses, the day-night cycle, the weather, all of that stuff, it would probably be best to just start over with a fresh new save. Because I would venture to guess that with the new mechanics, the tutorial's probably going to change a little bit. Like, for instance, they're going to have to explain the things like the traction motors, the fact that the breakers are going to change. Some of the gauges are going to change. They can actually explain... Well, I guess it comes up when you get the license, but they can explain how, like, multiple units work, how the headlights work, how the horn, probably the bell, how all of that stuff works. So there's just going to be more stuff to explain. So, honestly, it would probably be best to just start over. And that's probably what I'm going to do. Alright, now let's go up this 3.3% grade with this tiny load. It would be an embarrassment to stall now. If I would have coupled into a few more loads going back to the harbor, it might have been a little bit different. But since these are empty, like a good place that definitely would have had something going to the harbor would have been the oil well back there. And those would be heavy. So it would be in my best interest to leave these cars on the main line, go forward past the new cars, and then back up to back up to hook onto the front pull forward out of the main line, or out onto the main, back up onto the main again, and hook up to the other cars in the back. That way I have the heavy stuff in the front. And I've been doing this for almost 2 hours now, so I just wasn't feeling it. So instead I'm gonna get this back to the harbor, get it backed into or get it turned around, get it backed into the G lot, into the G track, service the locomotive, and probably end the stream there. Easily got another 30-40 minutes of work left to do. And since this is my first stream in a long time, I figure this is a good way to attempt to get back into it. Yeah, it would be so depressing to derail this train. This is pretty much all uphill, but it's kind of shallow through here. And then once we get up to there, it becomes downhill. It's kind of like a trivial thing, but I'm also hoping that the trees get trimmed back a little bit so you don't have as many tree branches clipping through the cab as you're going down the rails. And then there are a couple of graphical missing artifacts, some of the rock faces. I'm hoping those get stitched together. But it's sounding like the simulator update's going to be big, so I would imagine a lot of those things are going to be addressed. And then specifically the thing that I was talking about earlier, where you get hung up on the track in some places and you just lose all of your speed because you hit something invisible that just isn't there. And it sounds like those things will definitely be addressed, because the harbor specifically, they're implementing padded tracks, so they're basically redoing the entire track in the harbor town. So I can't imagine that they would let this tree branch stay here if they're overhauling how the track works, how the suspension works. If they're fixing all of that, I can't imagine they would just let these things just kind of slip by the wayside. But to be perfectly honest, this is a rather large game world. And there are just a lot of things. And the stuff with the physics about making the cars and locomotives interact with each other, making them move. it's not an easy thing. Like, the minimal knowledge I have about making video games, coding, programming, stuff like that, without having any experience with it, you don't fully appreciate how much work it takes to take something that basically amounts to lines, surfaces, polygons, just like a mesh in 3D space, and then you have to give it weight. You have to make it behave a certain way. All of that takes an insane amount of work. If you've ever tried, like, doing, say, a Unity tutorial, where you learn how to make, like, okay, this is a plane. Okay, now make that plane something you can interact with. And then you make, like, a cube. Above it, you give the simulation of gravity. Alright, now make the cube hit the plane. And then you realize, oh wait, the plane doesn't do anything. I have to make it into an object you can collide with. And then you slowly start to figure out that, oh, just standing on this surface in this locomotive takes so much work. And you start to appreciate more of how these things are made. Like, just something like make this realize that it is a lever. This lever has multiple positions. Those positions do something else. And then there's like a chain of events that has to make it so that this throttle is a throttle, and it makes the engine speed up. And there's just so much that goes into making that happen that, at least in my opinion, not everybody fully appreciates just how difficult that is. Like the fact that the game started out being in VR, but then they ended up adding the ability to play it on just a flat computer monitor. That wasn't always in the game, and then you would think, like, oh, that should be easy, instead of having, like, the controllers have it so that you click on the things. It's like, instead of using the touch controls for, like, these, you click on it. It's like you just click and drag. Well, that was kind of clunky, in my opinion, starting out. But it's vastly different from grabbing it with the controller, which it sounds like the controllers are going to go away with Simulator, and it's going to start looking like hands instead of these. So that's another thing I'm looking forward to. Then they tried to make it a little bit better by making it so that you can roll the wheel on your mouse to move things. So you just put the cursor on the thing and roll your mouse, and it can go forward, backwards. You can open doors, flip switches. They made all of that better, but you just don't fully appreciate how difficult stuff like that is to do. And my only experience with making like 3D models is I would draw a figure in like Blender, and then I would have to go into something like Mesh Mixer, make it into a physical object that has like some kind of weight, and then I would put it into a slicing program to print it with my 3D printers. And that is a very minimal thing. I also learned a little bit about how to animate my 3D models and make them do stuff using simple like keyframes in Blender. But that gives me a slightly bigger appreciation for what goes into taking a 3D picture and making it into a physical object. Because even in like drafting and technical drawing, you can learn how to make like an exploded diagram, but that's still a far cry from, okay, this is a diagram of an engine, to making it move to the point that this is an engine. And it's just a major difference between a random miscellaneous object and something you can actually touch. And just like lines and faces and just like a surface with a texture color is not a physical object. There's just like so much work that has to go into making that little picture into a 3D model that you can move around, and then making it so that not only can you move around it, or you can move it around, like you can get a different angle to render a different facing on it. You make it into something that you can simulate touching it. You can give it like weight. You can make it move. You can make it respond when you do something to it. Which, doing something to it is something else you have to script and program. Why am I getting lag? I got a feeling this is going to be bad real fast. Alright, let's go over here real quick. Clearly my computer is losing it. I mean, it could just be spawning in the cars and locomotives here at the harbor, and the harbor is a pretty demanding location. But I have this sinking suspicion I went too fast somewhere, and I'm gonna look back and I'm gonna have an intermodal car just like bouncing all over the track. The game's not that insane with its derailments, but still. It is a legitimate concern when you hear something that doesn't sound right, and put this away. Maybe the next time I play, I'll switch to Steam. Yeah, you hear that like grinding back there and how it just doesn't sound right. Alright, we are on the last descent into the harbor. See, stuff like that, it's kind of like unsettling to look at. Alright, grab this, put it down there, grab this, turn it on, and let's get out of the train. Okay, that's a little bit more than just initial reduction, but whatever. There's another spot right over there that you can get hung up and you have to like power through it. But I passed the switch track, so I think I'm past where it normally causes problems. But we were coming in going more than 20. And we're currently going 8. So even though the locomotive missed it, the cars did not. So still got slowed down a little bit back there. Alright, keep it on notch 2 for a second. Now the best course of action is to use the C track right here. Preferably something that you know is going to be empty, like the loading track. Yeah, C3L. So you pull down the loading track, and then you go past the switch over there, and then you back onto this Y right here. Flip this switch going to there. Let's reposition this to go back down the main. On the off chance that I come back from, say, the military base. Which that actually is a pretty direct way to get there. And we gotta go this way. Helps if you flip the switch. And you gotta go to 5, 3. Okay, good. 4 is the main, 5 is the inbound. Okay, going straight, going right, 3, 4, 5. 4 isn't labeled. Alright, we're good. Now, how are we looking on train? Here's my locomotive, going 15 kilometers an hour. And when the 9th car passes this point, we got a minute. Let's get this going straight again. Get this branch of the Y coming in from this way. And here are the last 3 cars. This is probably not the best, like, proper way to do this, but you can guarantee the loading and unloading tracks will always be vacant unless you intentionally put something there. But just the randomly spawning loads, those tracks will always be empty. So if you need a spot to turn around a rather lengthy train, that's a good way to do it. Although really I don't have to turn around, I'm just choosing to. Alright. And these are empty, so they're not going to take much to get rolling again. And there's only 9 of them. This train's not even worth DE2. And I have a 6 with a caboose. Oh no. What broke? Okay, I guess it was just a switch. The problem is I think I hit the wrong switch. Like I probably hit that one. By mistake. Which, let's be honest, it's not the first time. And it probably won't be the last either. Alright. Let's get past this switch. And we'll switch it back to going straight. Is that straight? Hard to say. Either way, we're going to switch it to left. Alright, get completely off of the switch. Okay. It is on the other side. Oh well. And then once we're past this switch, we're going to realign it with that way. Yeah, that's another one of those areas that'll just kill your speed if you hit it. And sometimes if you get hung up on it with the wrong thing, you gotta go up to like notch 5 just to pass it. And it's just insane. Alright, now we have the switches aligned all the way back into the G track. But we still want to take it slow. Come too far to mess this up now. Alright, now we're going down to G. You could do the same thing, or no, you really couldn't. The C track is really the only way to turn around. You could also turn into the military base. But call me crazy, but I would prefer not to do that little Y turnaround in the military base without military cargo. I feel like that would probably upset our fictional Yardmaster. Great. 11 kilometers. Alright, we just gotta get all 9 cars past this sign. And they're color-coded, so you got 3 red, 3 blue, 3 yellow. More of like a navy blue or royal blue. $8K. I guess you really wouldn't have anything to hang on to with the intermodal cars. And no steps or grab irons on these. Alright, let's hit the train brake. Hit the independent. Turn off the train brake. 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 Okay. And we'll get this switch aligned with the main again. It's like a small thing, but I feel like I would like to see the end of the switch be in the same place as the post, but that's probably asking for too much. Oh boy. Alright, let's turn this in. $10,000. It's going to cost me more than that to service the locomotives. Or the locomotive. Actually, that's not necessarily true. This trip was much easier. Can leave that aligned with G. Let's speed it up a little bit. Yeah, apparently you can go like 50 through here, but I just don't. I just prefer to do everything slow and steady. Okay, now I gotta get over to here. Alright, I gotta get around to about, yeah, no, a little bit closer to the switch. I'm gonna leave my caboose. That way it's still in a good position that I can use it. And we have two DE2s and a 282 and a single DE6. So I can do big job, or I can do a couple of big jobs the next time I spawn in here. Alright, let's put you here. Alright. Okay, see, this is showing you that I am not crazy. I did not automatically couple this. I coupled this to that. But that is not the position that I found it in. At some point, it is changing. I can't really say that I, don't like it, it's just weird. Like, you go back to the coupling mechanism, you go back to the hooks, and you're just like, okay, what position is it going to be in this time? It's always a fun surprise that affects literally nothing. Pass the switch. Alright, now let's go nice and slow across the turntable. Give it some fuel. And I can call it a day. Going on for 2.5 hours now. don't know why I never noticed the paint bubbles. Clearly they painted over some rust. Yeah, I should blow into the roundhouse. Oh, perfect. I'm gonna put it into neutral. There, there, there. I feel like the emergency cutoff is not the way you're supposed to shut this off. But it's kind of like whatever. Alright, how are we looking? Oil, don't need sand. Alright, what do we got? Oh, actually we still made a profit. Now we'll go over to the caboose, pay the fees. Alright, the trash can in the caboose does not work like it's supposed to. And you go down here. No active jobs. Got over, actually not doing bad, $544,000. I have a $700,000 copay. So basically, if I break anything, I'm paying for like all of it. Yeah, that's why I do everything safely in this game. Alright, let's just grab these. We'll take them over to the dumpster that we know works. There. So yeah. I'm Alan, also known as McLaren 2009. This has been Derail Valley, and my first stream in several years. I'm not sure how many people have tuned in or have ever been watching to begin with, but thank you all for watching, and have a nice day.